is the perfect example of they don't get fired, they get transferred. And this story right here that I'm about to bring to you is a perfect example of that. As a matter of fact, the last time I think I talked about Timothy Loehmann was him getting hired or going to apply to work in some precinct out in Pennsylvania. Now that was back in 2022 if I'm not mistaken. Fast forward to 2024, Timothy Loehmann has now been hired by this police department in West Virginia. Ironically, I just did a live stream about an event that happened in West Virginia with this white couple adopting these black children and locking them up in a shed and treating them like slaves. And the crazy part about it is the name of this department or the name of this county where he's working at is called White Sulphur. Like it literally reveals itself sometimes all in a name. Now I'm gonna start reading this article, but there's one thing that stuck out to me as I was skimming through it before I decided to record this video. The police officer who killed Tamir Rice is now working for a police department in West Virginia. Timothy Loehmann shot and killed Tamir Rice, a 12-year-old boy, in 2014. That's crazy to believe. It's been 10 years already. It'll be 10 years, I think, in November. Loehmann now works for a White Sulphur police force in West Virginia. He was not charged in connection to the shooting of Rice and was cleared by a grand jury. However, he lost his job with the Cleveland Division of Police for lying on his application. That's the only thing they got him on, was lying on his application. Can you imagine if he was honest on his application? He probably would have kept his job in Cleveland. In 2022, Loehmann was hired as a police officer for Tioga, a small borough in Pennsylvania with a population of around 700 people. Now that's the part where I wanted to stop at. I looked up the demographics for this White Sulphur County or White Sulphur, West Virginia, again, another place that I never heard of. Like I said, if it's outside of Charleston, West Virginia, I'm not familiar with it. But I looked at the demographics, and their population is about 2,170 people. So I'm thinking to myself, this guy was applying to work as a police officer in Pennsylvania in a town of 700 people, which is already a relatively small town. Now he just got hired by another department in another state that's also another small town. So what this is telling me is he can't, while he's getting floated around to these different departments, he can't get a job as a cop working in these big municipalities, because Cleveland, where this happened at with Tamir Rice, that of course is a very big city with a huge population, like in the probably in the six-figure range. All these other towns are small in comparison. So he probably figures, if I go and work in these smaller towns, then no one will know who I am. But here's the thing. People won't forget too easily, or they probably did, but the minute they mention, oh, Timothy Loehmann, they may not know you just as Timothy Loehmann, but when they attach Tamir Rice and they remember that story, then they're like, oh, that's the guy who did it. Because according to the article, he didn't stay long at this department in Pennsylvania that had 700 population, a population of 700. As a matter of fact, I don't even think he did one day. I think he they ended up tossing the application before he even had an opportunity to really do any work for the department. Oh, as it stands in the article, it says, however, Loehmann withdrew his application shortly after. So he asked them to pull his application after he submitted it. Attorney Subdo Chandra, who co-represented Rice's family, released the following statement regarding Loehmann's hiring. White Sulphur Springs police chief and its public officials evidently don't care that 1. The city of Independence, Ohio considered Timothy Loehmann mentally unfit for duty. 2. Cleveland fired him because he lied on his application, a firing affirmed on appeals. 3. He rushed upon and slew a child. And 4. In the ensuing investigation, he lied about calling out warnings to Tamir when his fellow officers said the windows were up that fateful winter's day. While any normal person and certainly any child would grasp that Loehmann should never be entrusted with a badge and gun, some people love lying, child-killing cops so much that they are determined to foist him on the rest of us. Every time Loehmann resurfaces in his game of bad cop whack-a-mole, he torments the family of Tamir Rice. Why can't he just go away and live the rest of his life he deprived Tamir of in humility? Why does he insist on being a cop? It seems pathological at this point. And what sort of crazy public officials don't care that they must now disclose that he's a known liar to defendants in every criminal case he's involved in? Loehmann is a Brady Giglio cop because of his lies on his police application and during the Tamir Rice investigation, and because independents found him unfit. Timothy Loehmann should be radioactive to any sensible member of law enforcement community. Officials who think it's okay to hire him as a cop are betraying their citizens' trust. As a former federal prosecutor, I'm disgusted by the lack of integrity. Let's hope White Sulphur Springs residents have the good sense to condemn the poor judgment of their morally bankrupt police chief. I highly doubt it. I mean, look at what just happened in the story I talked about with them kids, those black kids that were adopted. He's trying to go into a place where he can feel real comfortable and safe after what he did, or probably be around people that would agree with what he did. But it's evident that they don't. It makes me question too, why did he pull his application when he applied to work as a cop in that even smaller town in Pennsylvania? And that was back in 2022, so it's not like it happened right soon after what he did to Tamir Rice. This was 8 years later. So it makes you wonder. I'm sorry, not 8 years. Not 8 years later. Wait, now that I think about it, it is 8 years later. I got my math mixed up. But it makes me wonder now, why did he pull his application? They didn't pull it. He withdrew it. Like, he went to them and said, you know what? I can't work here. Can you just rip up my application and I'll go elsewhere? It's also deeply troubling that White Sulphur Springs police are retaliating against those, including journalists, who ask questions about Loehmann by quashing their First Amendment rights. But it tells us what we need to know about the indifference of public officials there to civil rights. White Sulphur Spring officials should be sued over that, and the city should be bankrupted. Tamir would have turned 22 this year. Like we always say, never fired, always transferred. And this is the second department that he's gone to since he was fired from the other one. And notice what they said he was fired for lying and some other things, not for what he did to Tamir Rice, because he wasn't even charged for it. Timothy Loehmann is one of the OG of Operation Protect the White Boys. If I was doing commentaries back then, he definitely would have qualified for sure, just on that alone. And now he's at this new department, and he slipped it under the radar. If it wasn't for one of my subscribers in the Discord posting this, I would have never known about this, and most of you wouldn't have known about it either. And by the way, the article itself was posted on June 29th. I'm recording this on July 1st. 2 days later. By the time y'all will see it, it'll most likely be on Sunday. So there you go. I am not in the least bit surprised that this was the outcome. Not in the slightest bit. Like I told you, they do not fire them. They just transfer them, and then they do it low key, under the radar, under the table, so you never know. Like, as if we're gonna forget this. Some people probably have forgotten who Timothy Loehmann is, but they'll know who Tamir Rice is. And if you don't know who Timothy Loehmann is, if you type in Tamir Rice, his picture will come up. And by his, I'm talking about Timothy Loehmann. But I don't expect much to happen from this department. I mean, he went to West Virginia, of all places. West Virginia as a state is one big sundown town. So, and the name of the county is called White Sulphur. I mean, could it get any more obvious? if y'all didn't catch Kid Gravity's live that he did, and shout out to him, by the way, a few days ago, when he touched on this part right here is probably going to catch you by surprise. Now, this happened, or this news came out literally maybe a couple hours after I was done recording the first part of this video. And this is the only outlet right here that is reporting on this, maybe because it's a local affiliate. But it says, officer who fatally shot Tamir Rice resigns from the White Sulphur Springs Police Department. Mind you, the article that I read from was posted 3 days ago from the time of me recording this video. Well, yeah, about 2 or 3 days ago. So it sounds to me like he wasn't even there for a whole week before he was up out of there. Now, my only speculation as to why he resigned is most likely because of that statement that came from that attorney for Tamir Rice's family, the representative, when they put that statement out there. They probably didn't even know who this guy was, and when they found out who he was, and because they didn't want any scrutiny, they ended up making him leave, but he ended up resigning on his own. They didn't fire him, so he was allowed to resign, which means this man is probably going to float right on to another department to see if in another small town where he feels people don't know him, and people are going to find out about him there too. Because the thing is, as long as his name is in the know and mainstream media, it knows his name and his whereabouts, they're always going to attach what he did to Tamir Rice to him. So that means that if people get wind of it, the right people, that is, they're going to put it on blast, and the same thing is going to happen. That's why I assume that's why he withdrew his own application from that town in Pennsylvania that only had 700 inhabitants. And I feel like the same thing probably happened here, except he actually did get the job, but he didn't stay there long. Like I said, I'm only assuming that he was there for about a week before he got himself up out of there. But like I said, because he resigned, he's probably going to try to find another place to go at. The guy's practically a gypsy at this point. There's really nothing he can do except just continue to float on to different places. His best bet is just to lay low and do some at-home work or something like that, because his hopes of wanting to be a stable cop, as far as I'm concerned, and what it's been looking like as far as not one but two instances where this has happened, it is a shot in the dark. I don't think Timothy Loehmann will ever be a cop again, and he shouldn't. He shouldn't have been a cop in the first place, considering what he put on his application when he applied to be in that police department where he killed Tamir Rice back in 2014. So it is what it is. On to the next.
Lord, I'm having a heart attack. Damn, this is some scary shit.